Pastor David stood at the front, Bible in hand, as he began to pray. His voice rang out with authority, commanding the dark forces to leave. As he prayed, something extraordinary began to happen. Several students started coughing violently. Others cried out in distress, and some collapsed to the floor as though an invisible weight had been lifted from them. Suddenly, a girl in the middle of the crowd, no older than 15 years, screamed, "Stop! Stop, please! Stop sending fire! I will confess!" The hall fell silent as all eyes turned toward her. Springside International School had always stood tall, not just within the city, but across the nation. The school's blue and white uniform was a symbol of pride for students, and the sight of it drew admiration from both parents and teachers alike. Established over 10 years ago, Springside had been known for molding students who excel not just in academics, but in life. The school's principal, Mrs. Agbaje, often reminded the students of their motto, excellence in character and learning. Her office walls were adorned with trophies from national competitions, awards from government officials, and letters of commendation from parents who had witnessed their children transform under the school's strict discipline and godly teachings. Among the many brilliant students, one stood out. A 15-year-old Sarah, daughter of Mr. and Mrs. Oluwaseun. Sarah was the perfect example of what Springside stood for. She had represented the school in several national science competitions and brought home gold medals each time. Her parents were proud of her, not just for her academic prowess, but for the humility and respect she displayed. Sarah was respectful, always the one to greet her teachers with a smile, offer to help her classmates, and say thank you to the maid at home. Her bright eyes shone with curiosity and kindness. Life seemed perfect for Sarah and her family. However, no one knew that everything was about to change. One rainy morning, just as the term was coming to an end, Mrs. Agbaje noticed something peculiar. The students, once known for their sharpness and zeal, had begun to slack off. The final exams were near, yet the usual competitive spirit among the students was missing. In class, they appeared distracted, no longer paying attention with the same enthusiasm. Teachers whispered among themselves about how discipline had become an issue. Reports of students being rude, ignoring instructions, and failing to complete their homework became more frequent. Sarah was not left out of this change. Once the star student, she now struggled with subjects she had easily mastered before. In mathematics, where she had always scored above 90% before, now she could barely scrape through with 50%. Her teachers were baffled. "What is happening, Sarah?" Her mathematics teacher, Mr. Hassan, had asked her one afternoon. "I don't know. I don't just feel like doing anything anymore," Sarah had replied, looking down at her feet. Mr. Hassan noticed the tired look in her eyes, but said nothing more. At home, Sarah's behavior changed even more drastically. She no longer greeted her parents with the cheerful "Good morning, Dad," "Good morning, Mom" that they were used to. Instead, she would walk past them, often with her earphones plugged in. Her parents tried to talk to her to ask if she was facing any difficulties at school or with friends. "Sarah, you have not been yourself lately. Is something wrong?" her mother would ask gently. "Nothing is wrong, Mom. I'm fine," Sarah would snap, her tone sharp, her eyes avoiding her mother's concerned gaze. But the most shocking change was how she started treating people who worked in their home. Sarah, who used to offer a polite smile and a thank you to their maid, now back orders at them. "Can't you move faster? Why do you always act like you don't know what you are doing?" she had yelled one evening when her dinner wasn't served quickly enough. Weeks passed, and the decline in both Sarah's behavior and her academic performance worsened. Her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Oluwaseun, found themselves deeply troubled. They could no longer ignore the tension that had grown in their home. Even the staff at home avoided interacting with Sarah whenever possible for the fear of her sharp tongue. At school, things were just as bad. Springside International School had been losing its spark for a while, but no one could figure out why. The principal, Mrs. Agbaje, was alarmed by the increasing number of complaints she received from teachers. Many of the once brilliant students were now failing their subjects, coming late to classes and behaving rudely towards their teachers. Even worse, incidents of cheating, something previously unheard of at the Springside, had become frequent. The teachers had tried their best to intervene. They held special meetings with students, offered extra tutoring sessions, and even organized spiritual seminars, hoping to remind the students of the values the school once stood for. But it was as though a dark cloud had settled over the entire school. Sarah, once the brightest in her class, now barely passed her test. Her teachers were at a loss for what to do. She used to be our pride, one teacher remarked in a staff meeting. Now, she doesn't even bother to open her textbooks. At home, the changes in Sarah's personality became even more pronounced. She became more defiant, frequently arguing with her parents. It wasn't just her academic decline that worried them anymore. It was the way she seemed to have completely lost her sense of respect and moral compass. As the months went by, Springside International School's problem worsened. The once prestigious school now struggled to maintain its reputation. Parents began pulling their children out of the school, fearing that the declining moral standard and academic performance would affect their children's future. Despite the principal and teachers' efforts, things continued to spiral. The national competition, which Springside had won 3 years in a row, was fast approaching. But this year, for the first time, the school was struggling to even qualify. Sarah, who had always been one of the lead participants, was no longer interested. Her teachers tried to encourage her, but she simply shrugged off their efforts. "I don't care about some stupid competition," she told her science teacher, Miss Clara, when approached about representing the school. "But Sarah, you have always loved these competitions. You were one of the best we had," Miss Clara replied, her voice filled with concern. "Things change," Sarah said coldly before walking away. At home, things had reached a breaking point. Sarah's outbursts were becoming more frequent, and her parents didn't know how to handle her anymore. One evening, after another heated argument, her father sat her down in the living room, determined to get to the bottom of the issue. "Sarah, enough is enough," Mr. Oluwaseun said firmly. "We can't keep living like this. What has happened to you? Why are you behaving this way?" he asked with a worried tone. "Nothing has happened to me, Dad," Sarah shouted. "You are just making everything a big deal. Maybe I don't want to be perfect all the time." Her father sighed, rubbing his temple. "We are not asking you to be perfect, Sarah. We just want to understand why you have changed so much. This isn't like you," he said. "Maybe I don't want to be who you think I am," Sarah yelled before storming off to her room, slamming the door behind her. Her parents exchanged worried glances. They had tried everything, talking to her, giving her space, even seeking advice from family and friends, but nothing seemed to work. Their once happy family now felt like it was on the verge of falling apart. As strange events continued to unfold, a group of parents demanded a meeting with the school administrations. "You need to explain what is going on in this school," one father shouted. "My son used to be a model student, and now he is failing every subject and coming home with unexplained injuries. My daughter is a completely different person," a mother added, her voice trembling with emotion. "She is now disrespectful. She now talks back, and she even starts stealing money from us too," she said. Principal Mrs. Agbaje, already under intense pressure from the school board, tried her best to calm the crowd. "We understand your concerns," she said, her voice steady but anxious. "We are doing everything we can to get to the bottom of this. We have increased counseling sections for the students, and we have brought in experts to help understand what might be affecting them. But the parents were not satisfied. This school used to stand for excellence and godliness, and now look at it. You need to fix this before it's too late," one parent exclaimed as the murmurs of agreement echoed through the room. While the school struggled to contain the moral decay, something even more terrifying began to unfold. Students started falling sick without warning, some fainting during classes or feeling dizzy after lunch. Whispers of something dark going on in the school spread like wildfire. Meanwhile, back at Sarah's home, for her family, it has been a particularly rough week. Her behavior had gotten worse, and the nightmares she experienced had become more frequent. Every night, Sarah would scream in her sleep, waking up drenched in sweat, her eyes wide with terror. Her parents had tried everything, talking to her, consulting doctors, but nothing seemed to work. She dreaded going to bed, fearing the horrors that awaited her whenever she closed her eyes. One Saturday afternoon, Sarah's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Oluwaseun, decided to go grocery shopping. The tension at home was suffocating, and they thought a simple trip to the supermarket might help clear their mind. As they packed their bags and walked towards their car, a man in a simple suit holding a Bible approached them. "Good afternoon," the man greeted them with a soft but firm voice. His face bore a calm yet serious expression. "Good afternoon," Mr. Oluwaseun responded cautiously. "How can we help you?" The man looked at them intently. "My name is Pastor David," he began, his voice filled with an air of urgency. "I am a servant of God. As I passed by, the Spirit of God led me to stop you and deliver a message. There is a darkness hovering around your home, a force that seeks to destroy your family. Be very careful," he said. Mrs. Oluwaseun, startled by his words, instinctively clutched her husband's arm. "What do you mean?" she asked. The pastor's gaze softened. "I know this may sound strange, but I feel a great evil trying to attack your household. If you wish, I can come with you and pray over your home." Mr. Oluwaseun, though intrigued, was skeptical. "We appreciate your concern, though we don't know you. Thank you for the warning, but we will handle it ourselves," he said. Pastor David smiled gently. "I understand your hesitation, but remember, the battle we fight is not against flesh and blood. Should you need help, do not hesitate to find me. God bless you both," he said and walked away. Sarah's parents stood there for a moment, unsure of what to make of the encounter. They got into their car and drove home in silence, each lost in thought. They couldn't bring a stranger into their home just because he claimed to be a pastor, but his words lingered in their mind, especially considering what had been happening with Sarah. That night, Sarah's nightmare was more terrifying than ever. She dreamt of a dark figure chasing her through an endless maze. No matter how fast she ran, the figure was always right behind her, whispering terrible things in her ear. When she finally woke up, her scream echoed through the house, jolting her parents awake. Her mother rushed to her daughter's room, panicking. "Sarah, what is wrong?" she asked, her voice filled with concern. "Every time I close my eye, it's same thing. I'm being chased, tormented. I don't want to sleep anymore," Sarah said amidst tears. Her parents exchanged worried glances. They had hoped the nightmares were just a phase, but it was clear now that something much deeper was wrong. The encounter with the pastor earlier that day came rushing back in her father's mind. Maybe there was more to his warning than they had initially thought. "We need to find that pastor," Mr. Oluwaseun said firmly. "We can't ignore this anymore," he said to his wife, who readily agreed. For the next few days, they made regular trips to the supermarket, hoping to run into the pastor again. Every time they went, they scanned the area, asking people if they had seen him, but all to no avail. Just as they were beginning to lose hope, one afternoon, they spotted him near the entrance of the supermarket, holding his Bible as before. "Pastor David," Sarah's mother called out as they hurried towards him. The pastor turned and smiled warmly. "I see you have decided to find me," he said. "How may I help you?" "We need your help," Mr. Oluwaseun said, his voice heavy with worry. "Our daughter, she's been having terrible nightmares. She's not the same person she used to be. We believe what you say about the darkness surrounding our home." Pastor David nodded. "Let's go to your house. The Lord will reveal what must be done." Back at their home, Pastor David walked through the house, praying quietly under his breath. He spent a long time in Sarah's room, his David's eyes closed in deep concentration. After a few moments, he spoke. "There is indeed a dark force at work here," he said gravely. "But the root of this evil is not in your home alone. It stems from something much larger, a spirit that has been trying to destroy the school where Sarah attends." Mr. and Mrs. Oluwaseun exchanged a shocked glance. "The school?" Mrs. Oluwaseun asked. "Yes," Pastor David continued. "There is something deeply wrong at that school, something that has taken hold of many students, including your daughter. We must go there," he said, sounding urgent. The next day, Sarah's parents accompanied Pastor David to the school. When they arrived, they went straight to the principal's office, and after the usual pleasantries, Pastor David explained the situation. "I believe there is a spiritual force at work in this school," he said. "If we do not confront it, more harm will come to these children. I suggest we gather the students for a prayer session. The evil must be exposed," he said. Principal Agbaje, who had been searching for a solution to the school growing problems, agreed without hesitation. She had tried everything else, but nothing seemed to work. It was time to take a drastic measures. They called for an assembly, gathering all the students in the school hall. Pastor David stood at the front, Bible in hand, as he began to pray. His voice rang out with authority, commanding the dark forces to leave. As he prayed, something extraordinary began to happen. Several students started coughing violently. Others cried out in distress, and some collapsed to the floor as though an invisible weight had been lifted from them. The atmosphere in the hall became tense, filled with a sense of anticipation. Suddenly, a girl in the middle of the crowd, no older than 15 years, screamed, "Stop! Stop, please! Stop sending fire! I will confess!" The hall fell silent as all eyes turned toward her. "I'm responsible for everything that's happening," the girl sobbed. "But I didn't mean for it all to go this far." Pastor David motioned for her to come forward. She stepped up, trembling, and began to explain. "I became jealous," she confessed, her voice shaking. "The intelligent students in this school were always treated better than the rest of us. Sarah, in particular, was always praised. Why no one cared about students like me? I felt invisible. People like me who really needed the attention from teachers never got them. Rather, the focus was always on the students who needed little or no help. The constant comparison from the teachers and my parents did not even help matters, even as I wished I was intelligent too. It wasn't my fault I was born this way," she continued. And at this point, the teachers and principal were already feeling ashamed as they felt responsible for their actions. She took a deep breath, continuing, "One night, I was struggling with my homework, and I wished that everyone else would become as dumb as I felt, so there won't be any more need for the pressure and comparison. It was just a casual thought, but when I slept, I had a dream. A woman came to me and said she could help make my wish come true. All I had to do was share snacks with everyone, especially the bright students." The room was silent as she spoke. "When I woke up, I took it all just as a dream and even forgot all about it. But 2 months later, on my birthday, I shared snacks with everyone, and after that, I realized something has changed. The smart students started failing. Strange things began happening, and I realized it might be as a result of the dream, but I was too scared to say anything." Pastor David nodded solemnly. "You were used by an evil force," he said, "but it is not late. God can still save you." He prayed over the girl and continued the deliverance section. As he prayed, more students began vomiting strange objects, small stones, pieces of rope, and even nails. It was clear that something dark had been inhabiting the school. By the end of the prayer section, there was a sense of peace in the hall. Pastor David spoke to the students, reminding them of the importance importance of prayer and the dangers of jealousy and unchecked emotions. The devil uses our weaknesses to gain a foothold, he warned. If we remain steadfast in faith, we can overcome any challenges. The principal, deeply moved by the experience, thanked Pastor David for his intervention. We will make changes, she promised. From now on, every student will be treated equally, and we will prioritize both academic and moral excellence. As for Sarah, her nightmares ceased and her rebellious behavior began to fade. She reconnected with her parents, apologizing for the pain she had caused. The darkness that had gripped the school was finally lifted, and Springside International School returned to its former glory as a place of excellence and godliness, where every student is treated as important, no matter their academic prowess. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and leave a comment letting us know what you think about the story. Kindly subscribe if you are yet to do so. Up until next time, bye for now. Mwah.